I'm gonna say there's a pretty good chance that you've heard of the name Hytale before. This is the game that only needed a single announcement trailer, not even showing any extended bits of gameplay, that somehow still managed to catch the attention of millions and millions of people, coming up actually on nearly 55 million views on the single announcement trailer that they've released so far. And you know what? I'm one of those people as well. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm pretty damn excited for Hytale from what we've seen so far and everything that they've talked about. I've been trying to keep up with this game and all of the major announcements that have come through, and just this week we got a pretty big update through a dev progress blog post, and I want to talk about some of the new things that we've learned about the game over these past couple of months. But for some of you who might be unfamiliar with like what Hytale is, I think the best way to describe it and how a lot of people are looking at it is kind of like an evolution of Minecraft combined with these deep RPG systems and mechanics. So the game's gonna have a world with diverse landscapes and history and lore behind it. Each one of the zones featuring not only its own unique biome, but also wildlife and dangerous creatures guarding some of the most powerful gear in the game. They are promising to deliver these handcrafted adventures, like you can encounter a mage's tower overrun with monsters, or descend into an underground cavern and take on a colossal boss monster, and also tailoring to different playstyles, be it a settler, an adventurer, or a crafter. There's going to be farming in the game where you'll grow your own crops, take care of pets, tame mounts. You can even build boats and other vehicles. There's going to be co-op adventure, competitive multiplayer, mini games, and loads of powerful tools for modders. It's kind of like Minecraft taken to the next level. Now, it's not going to be exactly like Minecraft, but obviously visually there's a lot of similarities. But I think what has people most excited is kind of the world that they appear to be building. And again, those deep RPG systems and mechanics that the game is going to have. It's really, really intriguing how they specifically describe Hytale themselves. They say that Hytale combines the scope of a sandbox with the depth of a role-playing game, immersing players in procedurally generated worlds where teetering towers and deep dungeons promise rich rewards. It's designed with creative players in mind. Hytale's engine supports everything from block-by-block castle construction to scripting and customization delivered using easy-to-use and powerful tools. It's just a really, really promising premise, and I'm pretty excited. So let's talk about some of the new stuff that we've learned over the past couple of months, starting with the update that just came through this week. So yes, a new dev progress update was released where they wanted to round up some of the developer activities that have happened since the last blog post. They also reiterated the message from November's dev update, saying that the success of the announcement trailer has allowed them to be a lot more ambitious with every aspect of the game. This, of course, being thanks to some additional investor funding. There's been so much excitement about this game just from that one trailer that people are throwing money at the developer now, and this has allowed them to branch out. So in this update, they're talking specifically about some of the new rendering techniques, the atmospheric audio system, as well as the farming system. So let's go bit by bit through each of it. Starting with the new rendering, this month they have begun testing a new rendering tech for ice blocks. Now this is mostly going to be used in Zone 3 of the game, the wintry climates that exist there. And their idea with this change is they want to try to add a greater sense of depth to those areas, with spires of ice emerging from the frigid landscapes and covering cave entrances. They even show off a few screenshots. And the ice has a really nice translucent property to it. And those pillars of ice also appear to emit a nice little glow. Not everyone is going to care about this, but it does have a nice look to it. They did emphasize, though, that the tech is still early in development and subject to change, which is to be expected, especially now that we know this game isn't going to be fully releasing until 2021. Now, the next section of the post, I actually initially thought I was going to skim right over, but I was pretty impressed by the ambient sound improvements. So they mentioned that their game designer, Kieran Fitzpatrick, has been working on improvements to the game's ambient audio system. A couple clips here. In the first clip, they show some of the sounds of the weather and player changing as we move from an exterior to an interior environment. In the next clip, we see some audio from things like wind and creatures adjusting based on the surrounding environment. This clip shows a transition from outdoor to a deep cave ambient sound. This next clip shows ambient environment sound from the wind dynamically mixing with the sound of the scarab eggs. And finally, it's a clip of cave monster sounds reverberating off of the environment. Pretty cool stuff. Honestly, I didn't expect to care much about the sound section of this blog post, but after actually taking the time to listen to all of those clips, it sounds good and really seems to add to the character immersion within the world. And then the final section of this blog post, they went into some progression that they've done with the farming system. Again, they say that, hey, this is still deep in development. However, they have added new crop types as well as incorporated assets to illustrate crop growth over time. So they actually showed a time-lapse video to show off a specific batch of crops developing and growing over several in-game days. They mentioned the fact that players in the game are going to need to till and water the crops to ensure its growth, and they've also added fertilizer to the game as illustrated here by the cow. So that is the update that we just got this week. Well, I know a lot of people might not care about like the ambient noise and new rendering techniques, but I actually want to jump back to the prior blog post that came out in December where they talk about some pretty cool RPG systems that are going to be in this game. Specifically in the December update, they talk about the objective system, which is going to be a set of specific goals for players where certain conditions need to be met. So basically, these are quests that you are automatically going to get when you enter certain parts of the world. So in the section, they showed a clip where 2 players enter these ruins and then a kill counter pops up in the corner. If you complete the objective, you're going to be rewarded with loot and faction reputation. And they say besides walking into locations, objectives can also be tied to items, for example, a treasure map or a bounty note, and that they can at sometimes be one-off missions but could also form a chain with multiple stages. So yeah, it's a quest system in this game beyond the procedural generation of the world and the different zones. When you enter certain prefab areas, you could get some of these dynamically generated objectives or quests. They also talked about progression in the game. So initially, they had planned for players to progress from zones 1, 2 to 3, with ever increasing difficulty, with zone 3 being the hardest. Now they say that all 3 zones will contain multiple tiers of difficulty along with scaling rewards. So this makes it possible for players to begin their adventure in any of the 3 starting zones and then freely move between them while still staying in their difficulty tier. And the difficulty tiers are actually going to be presented visually. You'll know what sort of challenge to expect just by looking at the structure. And the higher tier areas will not only be visually distinct, but they're also going to have unique enemies and more numerous enemies in those areas. And then the final thing they talked about in the December progress update were these new creature types, showcasing an undead fish and an undead chicken. Some pretty interesting stuff since the last time I talked about this game. In my last video, I was specifically focusing on the fact that they were talking about all of the anticipation behind this game and them wanting to kind of live up to the hype and them taking that extra time and not releasing Hytale until some point in 2021. But I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly, if we get a beta at some point in 2020, especially with how finished the game already looks. You know, we have not seen a ton of gameplay, but they've shown us clips here and there with the animation of creatures and players and walking through the environment, and it is looking pretty well polished and pretty put together. I'm not saying I think they're going to release early, but I wouldn't be too surprised if people are able to play this game at some point later in 2020. You know, when I first saw the Hytale trailer, I was like, okay, cool, like it's a new Minecraft style game, but I feel like the more time I've spent looking into Hytale and learning about the different systems of the game and the kind of world that they're trying to build, I've become more and more interested. People are kind of referring to this as the evolution of Minecraft, with a much more detailed world, rich RPG systems and mechanics, all of the questing stuff that we're talking about. It's mind-blowing to me, like the reception that this game has gotten with so little shown, but I can't say that I'm surprised because from what I've seen, I am also quite intrigued. I wouldn't say this graphical style is traditionally what I'm drawn to. I mean, I don't really play much of Minecraft. I've dabbled with it here and there over the years, but it's never been a game that I was super devoted to. It feels like Hytale has enough of a unique twist and design to, I think, draw in potentially a wider audience. And I'm also very drawn to all of the RPG systems and mechanics. I mean, a lot of this game feels like like they're pulling from MMOs, and many of you watching my channel probably know I really like MMOs, so that could be part of it. Hell, that could be the entire reason, but them talking about this quest-like objective system, and the combat that we've seen also looks pretty, it doesn't look bad. Like, it looks like a pretty decent action combat system from the tiny snippets that we've seen so far. I don't know if I'm ultimately gonna end up playing this game too much, but I'm definitely intrigued in what I've seen so far. I fully plan to continue to pay attention to this game, follow the updates, and probably make videos talking about what we've seen and what we've learned so far. But pretty cool stuff, and yeah, hope you guys like it. Let me know what do you guys think about Hytale? You think it's gonna be good? I know a lot of people will say yes, because again, they got 55 million views. I can't even believe it. When's the last time a game came out of nowhere and got 55 million views on the announcement trailer? Has that ever happened? This has got to be like a record, right? Am I wrong? It's pretty crazy, dude.